Welcome to the 9th episode of VSML 2025 Recaps from Reality TV Wires. My name is Michael Harmstone, and not joining us this week is the Canadian who we often have to wash our hands after touching, Logan Saunders. But still here is the bingo bear himself, the guy who always loves having a bit of a fisherman inside him, David Bindley.
Good morning.
I wrote that over 24 hours ago, and it made me laugh 3 times.
It's going to be a long week, isn't it?
So you may have noticed the distinct lack of Canadian presence. Have you any idea where Logan Saunders is at the moment?
Probably trapped in the dungeon of a Cambodian restaurant, trying to work out how to operate a gramophone.
See, I was going to go for off getting some lessons in grace and decorum because he's currently got the grace of reversing dump truck without any tyres on.
Ah.
What a sad little life, Logan Saunders. Anything you want to discuss this week other than the bingo board? She didn't get bingo. Oh no, how terrible.
I can't think of anything, but I'm sure stuff will come up.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything we're missing.
No.
I mean, they've announced Traitors Quebec's coming back in 3 weeks' time, which I'm very excited about. Comes back on my birthday.
Yeah.
Traitors US finishes this week. Meh.
Oh, finally. Arjen Lubach on Taskmaster Netherlands.
Yeah, good point. And someone has already floated the idea of Sundos being a contestant, and I'm very much here
Yes,
for that.
please.
I will absolutely source it if Sundos ends up being a contestant on it. I think that's about it. I don't think there's any other TV news. Nothing we need to discuss this week, at least.
Can't think of anything.
Yeah. Did you enjoy this episode?
I enjoyed it like I've enjoyed basically this entire season except for that pot train week, but there's not a lot in here.
No, this is the lightest episode we've had to cover. I think it's about 55 minutes of the actual broadcast episode, which is very short.
And 25 minutes of that is filler.
Yeah,
at least.
I think the second challenge ended after 21 minutes.
Yeah.
It was certainly in the 20s. And then there was a whole lot of guff after that. So previously, the Final Four fought to recoup the losses of the previous week, first by trying to sabotage and beat a cookery princess, and then by spending the night in a hotel patrolled by creepy chambermaids. When given the chance to regain the entire €5,000 that they lost in one go, they chose to go for an individual advantage, but at an emotional execution, Sophie was the final recipient of a red screen, and she gone.
Ah, that's a shame.
It is. And I'll also repeat, that does not count as a she gone.
No.
Fuzzy really hated me putting that rule in last week. That caused a genuine bit of controversy, I think.
Good.
No regrets. Not as much as the suspect list question this week has, which I'm delighted about. I believe the exact wording from Holger Batts was, "Oh, you're nasty." Yes, I am.
Well, you are.
I've been waiting 10 months to use that question, and I was very delighted at the reaction I got from it.
Anyway, you'll have to promise to change the question for next year and then just change it to who is the loser.
See, I was tempted to change it to who is the loser for Bell here, I'll be honest, just to keep people on their toes, but I am fully intending on who is the winner probably being our traditional question for finale week, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
It just subverts what people are expecting, because
Yeah.
traditionally it is always who is the mole, but the wording officially on the suspect list form is test style question, so I can technically get away using that loophole.
Yeah.
But I just like the idea of, if you're going to get a clean sweep now, you've got to get everything right rather than just pinning all your hopes on one mole being right.
Yeah. And on the other side of things, yes, it is pin your cause to the mast sort of question, but you can stumble into a correct answer without knowing who the mole is as well.
Exactly. Which is sort of the point of having the bonus suspect list questions in there, to be honest, is to give people a chance when someone's on an absolute tear. Unlike this year, you're not.
I still can't believe I got a perfect score last year or the year before.
Didn't you do it 2 years on the trot? I think you did it for Euro and Anna.
Yeah, I must have, because I was definitely on Euro week 1, because I remember him completely effing up in that choir challenge. I think I was on Anna week 1 as well.
We all were. We all had a clean sweep on suspects last year.
Well, I haven't got one this year.
You have not. It will be interesting this time next week probably, to find out who has won the suspect list. I'm kind of interested, because I'm genuinely torn on my suspects this week. I'm actually contemplating, and I've only come to this conclusion in the last half hour or so, I'm contemplating having a different suspect on the podcast and on suspect list.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
but we'll get to that at the end of the episode, because I promise you, Fuzzy, this is not us just trolling you and going, oh yeah, let's give different suspects just to annoy you on bingo, but genuinely I am thinking, do I change my suspects on the podcast just to cover my bases and make sure that I've got some bonus points stashed? So we begin the episode, as always, with a briefing, and it is Rick saying,
This is the game, not real life. Here you are allowed. In fact, you must lie. That is what we expect from a mole. That's what everyone expects from a mole, so don't feel bad about that.
I was already planning on it.
I love that you can get to episode 9 of a season and still have to be told this is just a game.
yeah, listen up, Americans. It's all just a game. Stop taking it so damn personally.
It fascinates me that like Americans are very much on the this is just a game, you've got to be ruthless and all of that sort of stuff. And then they also take it more emotionally than anyone else as well.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, as we previously discussed, American shows tend to spaff a lot of prize money at them. So, like, you can't imagine American shows getting that emotional about an $8,000 pot at the end after 9 weeks.
Unless it's on Game Show Network, when $8,000 is a good prize for them.
Very true. And the episode title completes the Noble Eightfold Path as the right way of living. And I'm also calling it now, next week's episode title is probably going to be The Right Way of Moling, or The Right Way of a Mole, or something along those lines. I don't think it's going to be the traditional Who is the Mole that they use on the reviews.
No. I'm thinking, given the way this last challenge worked, and how the Noble Eightfold Path is usually depicted, I'm thinking it's probably going to be something along the lines of Full Circle.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to get the normal Who is the Mole title.
No.
And it is day 16 in Campot. And they toast to be in the final 3 and to Sophie. And they discuss how the pot is historically low, and Rose does not seem to give the slightest bit of a shit.
It's cracked.
Yes. This is also notable as a scene for Micah drinking a cocktail, which has been GIFed and will continue to be used as a GIF for all eternity now, because it really, really made me laugh. If Micah hadn't got the banner last week, it probably would have been the banner this week. However, it is not.
Oh.
Preemptive. Sorry, Fuzzy, you picked the wrong one.
That's all right, Fuzzy. We'll help you get a historian's clue later.
So they wake on day 17 and meet Rick in a market, and he greets them as finalists. They have 30 minutes to buy souvenirs from a list, each worth €250 for the pot. However, no body part and no souvenir can touch the ground from now on, as the floor is lava.
Is this where I point out that Micah is a year older than Nelly?
I was thinking that this is a very brave challenge to do with 2 women in their 40s, and also the fact that at one point they do allude to the fact that someone's going to roll an ankle, probably Stijn.
And also, with 7 feet tall Dutch people in a market with very small roofs.
Yeah, it felt very much like they were pandering to the Belgian fans, going, oh, someone might roll an ankle, if you know what I mean. But yeah, they old.
Yeah.
And each time they touch the ground, it will cost them €50 from their potential winnings. I like that the penalty here was from their potential winnings, not from the pot, because, if they'd had a high enough pot, it probably would have been from the pot.
Oh, yeah.
Did you spot what the actual correct tactic was with this? Someone did a very correct tactic here and then abandoned it.
Was this where they were basically standing inside the upside down chairs and just sort of sliding their feet across?
Absolutely. That's the way to do it, because every time you change levels, you introduce a vulnerability here. So I don't know why they abandoned the shuffling along on the top of tables thing, or top of chairs thing.
I'm assuming maybe production stepped in and told them, no, that's not counting.
Yeah, that's boring.
Yeah.
So Micah immediately ruins a crate and touches the ground. Like, literally seconds into this challenge.
And the best part is they weren't even expecting it, so they don't have a camera on her while she's doing it.
No, we just see a ruined crate. And then they get the incense and durian, and Micah touches the ground again. And they get a list with phonetic pronunciations, but it obviously does not work for every item.
Rose was having the time of her life in this challenge.
Yeah, Rose was having so much fun. Micah, however, was not. Micah had the confessional about, oh, it stinks and everything's just covered in fish guts. I don't want to touch it anyway. Rose is just having so much fun being a complete prick to everyone else.
I just love the bit where they find the cookies that aren't the cookies they need. Not only does Micah waste time trying to learn their command name, even though she doesn't need it, it's not part of the challenge. Rose wants to stop for a taste test.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a deeply, deeply unserious final three, and the season is better for it.
If Stijn is not the mole, he would have been driven bonkers by those two women, I think.
Yeah, oh yeah. What fascinates me is, like, Stijn really didn't do a lot in this challenge if
No.
he is the mole. Like, because it's an easy challenge to fail. You know, you miss things, you fall off. Stijn only fell off like once or twice. Basically, the first 6, 7 falls were all Micah and Rose.
Yeah. I'm wondering whether it goes back to what we've been saying the past few weeks of if Stijn is the mole, has he been holding back deliberately because they need an actual pot that people can earn? And it's very interesting that when we get to the final test segment, I think it's Rose basically says, oh yeah, he seemed disappointed because he wanted me to win the exemption because it took more money out of the pot.
Yeah.
I think that's a very interesting point if Stijn is the mole, that probably he didn't intend on winning that challenge.
It could also be, if he isn't the mole, he was disappointed that so much money was coming out of his prize.
Yeah.
But who knows?
We'll find out next week.
Yeah. I mean, probably not Saunders, because he'll suspect, I don't know, a puppet or something.
Yeah. I think if Stijn is the mole, there is going to have to be a discussion about whether there's a bit of an asterisk on it, because the biggest sabotage was taking $5,000 out of the pot very publicly.
And like, if he is the mole, he's got the $5,000 there. He's got the To Tell the Truth challenge. He doesn't really have a lot else.
Yeah.
Which, considering how much, he's always sort of in the position to try and win money, you would think if a mole was in those positions all the time, they would be a little bit better at keeping money out of the pot.
Yeah. And even with the To Tell the Truth challenge, it was Bridget's sabotage, not Stein's, because he relied on Bridget convincing the rest of them. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, when you compare that to Rose basically effing up every single challenge.
Yeah.
And Micah sort of managing to get in the right place a lot of the time and lose money. Like, I think Stijn would be the most disappointing out of the three in hindsight.
Yeah.
But he'd still be a better mole than the last couple.
And also, it then goes back to them using the constant trope of the young gay guy as the mole. For like the 15th time.
At least this one hasn't slept with Rick, though. That we know of.
So Micah says it's not hard to keep your feet off the ground in the market due to the offland smells, but she touches again. They get a woman to help with moving their platforms before Stijn touches for a 4th time, and he says he's clumsy. Rose drops a bench from a fair height and winces, which, spoilers, is the banner this week.
Excellent.
Because it just had banner written all over it. As soon as I saw that moment, it was that or Micah with the cocktail, and I thought, Micah had a banner last week, Rose hasn't had one all season, Rose can have the banner. They get a fisherman's hat for free, and I think it's very generous of production to actually credit them for that. And Rose touches for a 5th time before Stijn finds salt.
There's not really a lot to say about this challenge. Like, it's a nice challenge, but it's one of those challenges where they come up with one joke, and that's really all the challenge is.
Yeah. It probably needed a little more nuance. It's perfectly fine as a creative challenge. It would be perfectly fine as like the second challenge in a finale, if it was a finale with 3 challenges. I just don't think it's enough of a tentpole challenge to put at the start of a finale.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the problems this season, is we haven't really had many of the really big challenges that like Bell here does, big concept challenges, and Vidum sort of does smaller challenges, but a lot of them sort of stand out a little bit as well, like the hotel last week, the market at the start of the season, the haunted house / lie detector or whatever. But there's not a lot of challenges that feel grand this season, which is fine, because I get that, it's Cambodia, and they're sort of leaning into Cambodia and Buddhism, sort of being a little bit more quiet and meditative and all of that sort of stuff, which does lead to less intense challenges. And so in sort of the same way that Japan sort of doesn't really do anything busy until they're in Tokyo. But it sort of feels like maybe they've gone a little bit too far in the other direction this year.
Yeah, if you think the first challenge in the finale of Sicily for Belgia last year was the reverse bungee singing challenge.
Yeah.
That's what I mean when I mean like more of a big spectacle challenge.
Hmm.
And I mean it's nothing compared to the fish for advantages that we end this challenge set with, but that's the sort of thing that I'm talking about. Like in a finale, you probably want a challenge that is a bit grander and a bit bigger. And yes, this is a fun challenge, but
Yeah.
it's not really big enough to be the big challenge of the episode, which it ends up being.
And like even say, Mole Australia, even though that was, 20 years old, their final challenges were things like a treasure hunt for, really impossible to find items like a moving dinosaur or like a town crier or something like, making them teach each other to fly a plane in a relay or getting eggs out of a crocodile's nest. Those were, like, I guess, more impressive challenges. This is a fine challenge, but it's a mid-season challenge. It's not a finale challenge.
And the other element of this challenge that they don't really harp on too much is all of the souvenirs are souvenirs of their adventure. So they're all linked
Yeah.
to previous challenges, but nobody actually ever says that.
I wonder if this would have worked better last week instead of the salt challenge, where instead of having one group of three, you've got two pairs going around, and then maybe try and rework the salt challenge a little bit and so put that in the finale somehow. But I don't know.
Well, the way to do it with the salt challenge is just make the question mark envelope one of the questions on the final test or something.
That's a good idea.
Because the problem you've got is that after this challenge finishes, Rick does his intro for the fishing challenge and he's like, yeah, you could win up to €2,100, but also it's still not going to stop you having the lowest pot ever. Like, that's appropriately a cloud for that challenge to hang under. I think you want a challenge where they can win loads of money in the finale, but they don't necessarily win loads of money in the finale.
Yeah.
You want the temptation of that not having the lowest pot ever in there for them to go, maybe I don't take the questions for the finale.
Yeah, pull your finger out sort of challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Because it does still feel like they were being very cheap with the amounts of money towards the end of the season. I was fully expecting them to chuck a bit of money at them just so, they could definitely get over $8,000 in the end of this season rather than scraping $8,000 at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Stijn says that Rose is deliberately distracting them by trying things on and inspecting jewellery. And they reach the clothing department with 5 minutes remaining, and we see both the normal shirt and the football shirt that they're looking for hiding in there. And Stijn touches for his 7th time, and then Rose for an 8th. And they find the football shirt before Stijn falls for a 9th time, and the challenge ends. And I think it actually ends with 3 falls for each of them.
Huh.
Stijn certainly ends on 3, and I think Rose and Micah have 3 each as well. It might have been 4-2 one way, but
Yeah. But regardless, whoever the mole is really didn't do much in this challenge.
absolutely not. So Rick confirms that they got 8 products off the list, but Micah's layer cake doesn't count, meaning they actually got 7 correct, less than 9 touches for a total of €1,300 of 2,750 for the pot. And we also find out that Sophie willed the pot to Rose, much to Micah's disgust.
I like that Micah called that layer cake that wasn't counted a kind of turd in a bag.
Which, to be fair, sums up this challenge, I think.
Yeah. Like, nice challenge, probably a little bit underdeveloped and at the wrong point in the season.
Yeah. And I think the thing that sort of disappoints me most about this challenge is the fact they don't treat it like it's basically rites of passage, which it is.
Yeah.
If they'd used it and gone, oh, the football shirt, that's because Rick said at Anchor What that it's on every single item. Like, that would have been a nice way for them to go back through memory lane, basically.
Yeah. And it would have, filled out the episode a little bit. Like, it would have made the padding a little bit less obvious. Like, it's not as bad as the first challenge as the last couple of seasons, where it was, zipline countdown numbers game, or whatever the abseiling one in South Africa was. Basically, just guess the shape or whatever it was. Like, it's a better challenge than them. It's just not for this point in the season.
Yeah, I don't want it to sound like we're being too negative about this episode because it was solidly okay. But the thing is, last week was really, really, really good. And this season has been at least solidly good, if not pretty good. This
Yeah.
didn't feel up to the standard of the previous week, especially, but the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So they have more cocktails in the afternoon to do a debrief of both the day and what they enjoyed in the season. Micah says she enjoyed the heist the most. Stijn enjoyed the laser game at the airport, and Rose enjoyed the lie detector. And we enjoyed Rose doing the lie detector as well.
Yes, we did.
And Stijn and Micah agree that Rose can have the pots, but every time they're together, they want to be able to count it to make sure she's not messing about with it.
I love the bit in this challenge where, like, you can tell they were clearly told to do that section by production, because Stein describes the challenge as very James Bond and then has to think about which challenge he's talking about.
It's just such a cliche every season. There's so much guff in the finales. Just going, oh, what did you enjoy the most? I don't care. Just put another challenge in.
Honestly, you might as well just, stick a quiz challenge in there. Just make it questions about the season. Every correct answer is worth €50 and just be done with it.
Yeah. So it's day 18 now, and time for the final challenge and their last challenge to build the pot. They can earn €2,100, but regardless, it will be the lowest pot ever. And perhaps more importantly, they can also find out how their mole was chosen.
I'm just going to fact check Rick on that, because if they'd earned all €2,100 in this challenge, the pot would have been above Albania and South Africa. Sorry, Albania and Mexico.
Yeah.
Because it would have got them up to about 8,600. Albania was only 8,000. Mexico was 85.
Yeah. So in the water, there are pieces of circles which they've got to fish out, and there are 7 circles in total, each worth €300, and also worth the choices of one of the losers when picking their mole in episode 1. They've got 30 minutes, and Rick has an umbrella.
Do you think if this was like the old production team, these would have just been torpedoes?
Yeah. It felt like putting paper in water was a dumb idea.
Yeah. In a rainstorm.
Yeah. I mean, even ignoring the rainstorm, which did make it a bit more atmospheric and therefore slightly more interesting than it actually was as a challenge generally. But it felt like it was really, really silly to put paper boats in the water and fill them with paper that they then had to rip out and hope they didn't rip the circles inside. It just felt a bit last minute.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe another challenge had to be cancelled and then they came up with this as a substitute.
I think probably. I think they always wanted to do a challenge to end the season that had, you get to pick, you get to see what everyone else picked.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was this challenge.
No. I did like the comment on Discord that was basically like, what's more Dutch for the final challenge than fishing in the rain?
Yeah. This was not a good challenge. And more importantly, this was not an interesting challenge.
No. Like, the most interesting part of this challenge is Rick just shouting, "The challenge has begun," at the top of his voice.
Yeah. And the other thing about it, not to harp on a subject too much, but this is not a mole challenge. The mole couldn't have done anything if they wanted to, really, to sabotage.
I wonder if maybe the mole was briefed about how the colours were laid out. Like, say, the first boat on the left-hand side is red, then orange, yellow, whatever. I wonder if the mole was able to sort of know which colours were where and then sort of pick them up to try and prevent the others from getting the threesomes. Because that feels like the only thing you could really do. Because, yes, the mole wants to stop the others from getting the video profiles and wants to earn some for themselves. So, you can't go and see who Sam picked or whatever. But getting the videos for yourselves also brings money into the pot. So you want to basically try and get a lot of 2/3, but not the full circles.
I think, especially after the whole see the reaction videos thing really, really failed for production, I don't think that they would have wanted it to be a damp squib ending where none of the videos are really seen.
Yeah.
they wanted those videos introduced into the show, and I mean, I'm sure they were perfectly happy with 5 of the 7 being introduced.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much sabotaging the mole would have wanted to do here, even if the $5,000 hadn't come out of the pot.
I wonder, like, if this wasn't a replacement challenge, I wonder if maybe if you get to this point in the season and you don't have that huge pot drained, it might have been a choice between the €300 and the video.
Yeah, maybe.
That's the sort of thing I think they would have done in the past. And, you've got to make those split-second decisions so you can go and keep searching. But it also makes it a little bit more of a mole challenge because then you've got to choose between money and knowledge.
Maybe it was just that they knew that absolutely no one in this final 3 would have picked anything other than the knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, there is no way that they picked the €300 when they've just come off the back of picking 2 yokers over $5,000 or $3,000.
Yeah.
So Micah and Stijn get the first boats. Micah says she's got a bit of a fisherman inside her. Stein's the first to get a circle, though, and chooses Sophie, who's the only name that he really wanted. Rose completes dark blue and tries to choose Sophie, but then goes to Toon instead, weirdly. Stijn then completes purple and picks Ray. He's one of the most tactical and smart candidates.
I thought picking Turn was a good choice because she really didn't know anything about what he'd picked, where the other people she at least had time to ask and talk to them about it. Where Turn was basically out of there on day 2, day 3 or something.
I think it all depends if they knew what the mechanic of picking the mole was by that point. Because on the surface of it, if you don't know that it's to do with the characteristics they chose in their interviews and then the characteristics they assigned with people, picking Toon is a rogue move, especially as a first choice.
Yeah.
If you don't know that it relates to that.
I mean, I think by this point in the season, Rose would have figured it out.
Yeah. I'm just going to spoil the end of the episode. I think Rose is probably winning.
Yeah.
Whether it is Stijn or Micah, I think Rose is probably winning.
Well, if it's Stijn, she's the only one on Stijn, so she wins.
Yeah.
If it's Micah, I think she's probably got a little bit more of the answers crossing over to Micah than Stijn would.
Yeah, I think so. Stijn completes purple, picks Ray, as I said, and then Rose picks another, which is Nora, which she immediately regrets as they spoke a lot, and she says she should have picked Sam. And Micah completes red and goes for Sam, which Stijn thinks is an interesting choice. The time runs out with 5 other circles complete for a total of €1,500 or 2,100 for the challenge, 2,800 to 4,850 for the episode, and 8,055 or 47,150 for the season altogether.
Ooh, big spenders.
Yeah, Holger did say that he thought it was 49,000 plus whatever you give them for the ice.
Yeah.
I can only get 47,150 out of that, but I may have missed something somewhere. I'll double check it for next week, but 47,150 is what I think it is.
Who knows?
Yeah, I'll work it out for next week. I've got time.
I mean, the good news is Stijn didn't injure himself 7 different ways for nothing.
Very true. And then each of them goes to a separate treehouse with a tablet showing their choices video from the initial interview about what characteristics a perfect mole should have. Toon picks adaptive, social, and misleading, but social with Stijn and voted for Ray. Sophie picked decisive, stress-resistant, and convincing. And 2 of those went to Bridget and 1 to Rose, but she picked Nora as her mole. Sam picked ruthless, brutal, and confident, and picked Sophie. Ray picked ruthless, creative, and observant, and we didn't see what he picked. And Nora picked misleading, creative, and social. And Rose says she thinks the person without votes got picked as they were invisible to the rest of the group. And Nora also picked Sophie as the mole. And Rick tells them that they are going back to Phnom Penh to do the final test, and that is also where the reveal will be.
Dun, dun, dun.
So it's now day 19 in Phnom Penh, and it's time for the final test. 40 questions about the identity and actions of the mole. Whoever knows the most will unmask the mole and go home with the pot, totaling €8,055.
There's a whole bunch of tedious suspicions of each other in this section that don't really tell us much that we didn't clock the first time around.
Yeah, I don't actually think I'm going to go through any of the suspicions because it's just nonsense.
Yeah.
The important bit is that Micah and Stijn both suspect Rose, and Rose suspects Stijn.
Which is going to be interesting if it's Micah and nobody has picked her all season.
Yeah. I must admit, this is what's making me waver a little bit, is the fact that they've never done a final test where nobody has picked the mole, ever. but I don't know if that's enough to make me solidly not go for Micah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing's particularly interesting in the test segment, I'll be honest.
I think if it is Stijn or Rose, they're a good mole, but they're overshadowed as the mole in this season by Micah.
Yeah, absolutely. If Micah is the mole, she's a brilliant, brilliant mole.
Yeah, if Micah is the mole, she's probably top 3 ever.
Yeah. If Rose is the mole, she's been a little bit too obvious. If Stijn is the mole, he's been a bit overshadowed generally.
Yeah.
Unless he's done some really sneaky shit, which he might have done. The good news is that we get surprised by the fact that the entire group is back for the reveal.
Yay! I hope you're all ready to see more Gabriel.
Which does mean, as I've put in my notes, another chance for a Sam banner. Or as Fuzzy has already dubbed it, the return of the king. Oh, I can't wait for that episode next week of the inevitable Peter Yang conversation.
I wonder if, like, so many of the episodes this season, only really having 2 challenges means they're going to have time to actually cover them all this time, instead of just randomly getting halfway through, realizing, oh shit, we're running out of time, and then having to skip 4 episodes, like they do the last few seasons.
Well, I don't think we actually mentioned this last week. They're not in Bindles CS for the reveal, or for the reunion.
No.
They're in the location that they used a few years ago, which is weirdly in a shopping mall. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's not the one for Albania, which was the Red Church, but it's the other one that they used when they weren't using Bindles CS a few years ago. So it feels like maybe they're going to do a bit more of a normal style reunion, and it's not like we're going to have all the guff of all the eliminated people guessing who the mole is, because they all know.
Or like the bit where they go and have somebody stand out in the crowd, try and do an interview about who do you suspect and all that sort of stuff, and then the mic doesn't work and they have to cut back.
Yeah, because there's not even going to be a proper 5,000 strong audience this year.
No.
That's the other thing. It's just a studio affair, so it might actually just be a tighter reunion anyway.
Oh, good.
In terms of directing and production. So maybe there is a chance that they cover every single one of the challenges, or certainly every single one of the sabotages, and don't require us to go to the Average Ross website this year.
Yeah. Unlikely, but
yeah,
we can hope.
So they head up in exactly the same lift that they went down in 17 days beforehand, to exactly the same helipad where they all started.
Did you spot the best bit of this?
What's that?
When they're pulling into the building, they drive the wrong way up a one-way driveway.
I did not, but that's pretty spectacular.
Hmm.
I think also the lift that they were in, I think it had pictures of all the locations that they were going to after day one.
Oh, interesting.
It definitely had Cambodian scenery all around it. I think there might have been hint pictures for the locations that they were going to in that lift when they were going down. Rick compliments the group. The person they chose was completely unprepared, got on-location briefings, worked fearlessly, and was responsible for the worst pot that they've ever had. But who was actually responsible? Micah's job is to be completely different. If anyone can switch roles on a dime, it's her. She hides behind the friendly, sympathetic candidate. Is she a sly mole who controls the game? She cost them €1,500 for 2 yokers, but only a couple of weeks before, didn't even care about the 1 yoker that Sam was keeping safe for her. Rose is a respected journalist who no one trusted in this game. She misled the lie detector with her elaborate answers, cost them money by being good at woodworking, and lied about her exemption bid. Was she a shrewd candidate who wanted to mole, or was she a mole who wanted to hide in plain sight? Stijn is the youngest of the group, a jack of all trades with an exuberant presence, not exactly subtle mole material. How could he sabotage without everyone seeing? He often chose positions where money could be made, which often didn't succeed if there were advantages involved. He cost the group more than half the pot, but was quickly forgiven. Did he blind the others with his kindness and his enthusiasm? He tells them all they've completed their assignment. He compliments their creativity, their ruthlessness, and how social they were. But who were they?
That's an interesting trio of characteristics for him to say, because in episode 1, they have a montage, like one of the montages where they cut back to the old interviews.
Yeah.
There's a montage of those exact 3 characteristics coming up with like 3 different people talking about them. The only person left from that montage is Rose.
Interesting.
Because like I think it's Rose, Ray, and Bridget or something, but it's definitely Rose and Bridget. I can't remember who the third one is. But yeah, Rose is the only one left. So I'm wondering if maybe it's got something to do with what either the mole picked as their characteristics, or it's just a clue that because Rose is the only one left, that she's the mole.
Well, the other thing about this is all the characteristics we saw in this episode, those three are a hybrid of the choices of Ray and Nora.
Interesting.
And we didn't see who Ray picked.
Hmm.
Because Ray picked ruthless, creative, and observant. Nora picked misleading, creative, and social.
Interesting.
So that's interesting.
Hmm.
Anyway, Rick asked the usual question, who's the mole? And then we end the episode with a cheer, and we don't hear who actually said they were the mole. So, the suspect list question, as we've already discussed this week, is who wins? And if you haven't played your Yoker, this is your one-time reminder from me. Play your Yoker this week because it's the last week. Use it or lose it. If you don't use it, I'm not going to...
No free points for you.
Yeah, pretty much. The suspicions from the Netherlands this week are Stijn on 44%, up 4 from last week, and Roos and Micah both on 28%. Roos down 3 and
Ooh.
Micah down 1.
Interesting.
And seeing as though he's not here, Logan has sent me his suspicion, and naturally, his suspicion is Nadja. There was only one person it could have been. We discussed a few weeks ago about making it either Renomi or Rosario, but, given how much we've been taking the piss out of him for his Nadja suspicion the past few weeks, it could only ever have been Nadja.
I can't wait for him to pick Nadja every single week of Belgium, Thailand.
There's a Belgium, Thailand?
I
don't think that's been talked about yet, Bindles.
No.
The final two questions, as you'd probably expect. Who do you suspect, and who is going to win the show?
Okay. So, I'm going to suspect...
I've been wrestling with this myself for the past few days.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say Stijn, Micah, Rose.
Yep.
But if it's Micah, I wouldn't know that I've been on it for the last 6 weeks.
Yep.
But either way, I think Rose is the winner.
Yeah, I think Rose is winning. My official suspicions on here are Stijn, Micah, Rose. My suspicions on suspect list are Micah, Stijn, Rose.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Because I genuinely cannot decide between the two of them which it is. It's really irritating to me because this is what happened in Belkia and I went the wrong way in the end. So I'm splitting the difference. I win on our suspicions anyway if it's Micah. I win on first suspicions if it's Micah. Suspect list, I win if it's Micah. So I'm going Stijn on our suspicions just to get myself another point if it's him.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do it any other way.
No.
Knowing that Saunders hasn't sent his actual suspicions over, I know, shocker, that was made up that he suspects Nadja. I suspect that he's going to think Micah is still the mole.
Yeah.
I would probably guess he's going to say Stijn is the winner. And we'll see whether my predictions or Saunders' predictions are correct next week.
Okay.
Do you want to submit some Saunders predictions out of interest?
I'm going to guess that he's picked Angela Grothausen.
This is a really fun new game, by the way. We should do this every time he's not here. Try and guess what his suspicions are going to be.
He's going to pick Angela Grothausen, Glenn Hugel, and Alex Wagner.
Interesting choice. Yeah, maybe we should do this every time Saunders isn't here. I could feel a new segment coming on.
Wait, no, he's going to pick Angela Grothausen, John Kelly, and Kelly and John.
Well, obviously. Anything else you want to say about this episode?
Not about this episode, but now that we're sort of settled on what we're doing for historians, I just want to drop a clue for Fuzzy, because I know how much she just loved D800 last year.
I was reminded of D800. I had completely forgotten about it. But I think it was Jason forwarded the clip that I got of Gilles saying Happy Groundhog Day to Daniel Peake. And I just, I'd forgotten about that. I was looking back at the discussions from last year, and I was reminded of D800 and how much it annoyed her.
Yeah. And I loved it, it annoyed her because she couldn't make any sense of it, but I promise this year's clue is going to be a lot easier to make sense of. Doug Savant. Have fun, Fuzzy.
And on that bombshell, thank you for listening to our VSML 2025 recap. We'll be back next week to conclude the season with Saunders, I promise, and the hunt for the newest mole in Cambodia. Don't forget you can contact us on pretty much every social media platform where we are RTV Warriors, or you can email us and contact at rtvwarriors.com. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/rtvwarriors. Thank you as always to Marika for the subtitles, and we'll see you next week.
I gotta go and get a fisherman inside me.
Peace out. and just chill till the next episode.